Hello there, my dear financial adventurers. Welcome back to our channel, where we uncover the hidden gems of wealth building that most people miss out on. Today, we're diving deep into the untold secrets behind one of the wealthiest men to ever walk this earth, John D. Rockefeller. And let me tell you, these are not just any rules. These are the investment strategies that no one follows. But you're about to get ahead of the game. If you're serious about making your money work for you, then buckle up, because we're about to reveal the investment rules that Rockefeller lived by, rules so powerful that they took him from a modest beginning to becoming the king of oil and one of the richest men in history. And no, these aren't the basic save a little every month or diversify tips you've heard 100 times. We're talking about advanced strategies lessons Rockefeller mastered that almost no one uses today, but could completely change the way you think about building wealth. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on future wealth-building secrets. Trust me, you're going to want to stay tuned. All right, let's kick things off with a rule that seems obvious, yet so few people truly embrace. John D. Rockefeller had a golden rule that no one follows today. Invest in yourself first. Sounds simple, right? But it's much more than self-care or buying a fancy coffee on your way to work. For Rockefeller, investing in yourself meant building your skills, your knowledge, and your network 3 pillars that supported everything he achieved. He didn't just sit back and wait for opportunity to come knocking. He sought out education, mastered accounting, and most importantly, learned how money works. This is the foundation, folks. And here's where it gets real. Most people think that investing in themselves means buying material things that make them feel good temporarily. But Rockefeller? He took a completely different approach. He knew that in order to make big moves, you needed to become someone who deserved big moves. That's why he spent the early years of his life honing his skills, reading, learning about business, and wait for it, practicing humility. Yes, the richest man in history practiced humility as an investment in himself. He knew that wealth doesn't come to those who demand it. It comes to those who earn it. Think about it. In today's world, most people spend their money the moment it hits their bank account. But Rockefeller had a different approach. Before anything else, he focused on building himself mentally and financially. He knew that without a solid foundation, any wealth you acquire will eventually slip through your fingers. Want to know what else Rockefeller did? He continually reinvested his time into expanding his knowledge base. Even after becoming one of the wealthiest men alive, he was a lifelong learner. So if you want to follow in his footsteps, start by asking yourself, how am I investing in me today? Don't just save up for that flashy car or the next vacation. Think about investing in courses, workshops, or learning new skills that will increase your value. That's the real game changer. Whether it's learning financial literacy or developing skills like negotiation and leadership, the ROI, return on investment, in yourself will always outpace the return from any other investment. Let me ask you something. How many times have you heard someone say, I just want to make a quick buck? Now, Rockefeller would laugh at that. One of his most critical investment rules that no one follows today is this: focus on long-term gains, not quick wins. In the age of day trading, crypto spikes, and get-rich-quick schemes, this principle is more important than ever. Rockefeller didn't build Standard Oil by flipping stocks or chasing the latest trend. Nope. He played the long game, making strategic investments in infrastructure like pipelines and refineries that would pay off for decades. He understood something that many investors today overlook. Building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. Think about it. Rockefeller wasn't interested in short-term profits. He wanted a legacy. He knew that short-term greed would only get in the way of creating lasting wealth. So he ignored the temptation of easy money and instead poured his energy into building businesses that would stand the test of time. Here's an example. While everyone else was focusing on selling oil quickly and making immediate profits, Rockefeller was focused on refining the process itself. He made sure that every part of his business, from extraction to refining to distribution, was optimized for the future. He didn't just want to make a quick sale. He wanted to own the entire oil industry. And the best part? By thinking long-term, he was able to make deals that others couldn't. When competitors were going bankrupt during short-term crises, Rockefeller bought them up at a fraction of their value, knowing that the oil industry's long-term potential was immense. So how do you apply this to your life? Start thinking about how your investments will pay off in the next 5, 10, or even 20 years. Skip the temptations of fast money and focus on what's going to last. Because the truth is, when you chase short-term gains, you're gambling. But when you focus on the long game, you're setting yourself up for lifelong success. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Rockefeller's third rule that almost no one follows today is to be ruthless about efficiency. And when I say ruthless, I mean it. Rockefeller wasn't just content with running a profitable business. He squeezed every drop of profit out of his operations. He famously cut costs wherever he could, even down to the smallest details, like reducing the amount of solder used in oil barrels. Imagine this. By saving just a fraction of a cent on every barrel, he ended up saving millions over time. That's the level of detail we're talking about here. And guess what? This attention to efficiency is what allowed him to outcompete nearly every other oil company in the business. But efficiency wasn't just about cutting costs. It was about optimizing every single process in his business. Rockefeller was obsessed with reducing waste, streamlining operations, and finding ways to produce more with less. He didn't just want to make a profit. He wanted to make sure that every dollar he spent was working at its full potential. In fact, Rockefeller would often say, "I would rather earn 1% off 100 people's efforts than 100% of my own efforts." This meant that he was constantly looking for ways to delegate, automate, and refine his business processes so that they ran like a well-oiled machine, pun intended. He wasn't interested in doing everything himself. Instead, he built systems that worked for him, even when he wasn't there. So how can you apply this in your life? Take a hard look at your finances, your investments, and even your personal habits. Where are you leaking money, time, or energy? Plug those leaks and you'll be amazed at how much further you can go. Whether it's automating your savings, reducing unnecessary expenses, or optimizing your workday, efficiency is a silent wealth builder. It's not flashy, but it works, and that's why almost no one does it. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far and want more content like this, comment the word "more" so I'll notice. Next up, let's talk about controlling your market, or niche, a rule Rockefeller lived by, and one that almost no one has the guts to follow today. Rockefeller didn't just compete in the oil industry, he dominated it. He didn't settle for being a player in the market. He set out to control as much of it as he could. Now, I'm not saying you need to build a monopoly, but here's the key. Find your niche and own it. Whether you're an entrepreneur or an investor, you need to carve out your space in the market and protect it fiercely. The reality is, if you're not aiming to control your niche, someone else will. And Rockefeller understood that better than anyone. He took control of the oil supply chain, everything from extraction to transportation to refining. He was involved in every step, ensuring he had more control and more profits than his competitors. By controlling every part of the process, he wasn't just making money on oil, he was making money on the infrastructure that supported the oil industry. Here's where it gets even better. Rockefeller didn't need to be the biggest name in the world to dominate his niche. He focused on being the best at what he did. And when you become the best at something, you naturally attract customers, partnerships, and opportunities that allow you to expand even further. So what niche can you dominate? Once you find it, pour all your energy into becoming the leader in that space. And here's a tip. It's not about doing what everyone else is doing. It's about finding the gap in the market and filling it in a way that no one else can. Today, we see people spread themselves too thin, trying to do everything and be everywhere. But Rockefeller knew that true power comes from focus. Control one thing, do it better than anyone else, and then expand strategically. Once you master your niche, the world becomes your oyster. Now, everyone talks about diversification, right? But here's where Rockefeller's next rule stands out. He diversified strategically, and this is a step that no one does well today. Most people diversify because they think it will protect them from risk. But Rockefeller had a different approach. He didn't diversify just to spread the risk. He diversified because he wanted to control every aspect of the industries he was involved in. For example, Rockefeller didn't just invest in oil. He invested in railroads, chemicals, and other industries that complemented his oil business. He realized that if he could control the supply chain, everything from transportation to refining to distribution, he could ensure that his profits were always maximized. In today's world, we often hear the phrase, "Don't put all your eggs in one basket." But Rockefeller knew that some baskets are worth loading up. Strategic diversification isn't about randomly picking a few stocks or businesses and hoping they do well. It's about finding investments that enhance and support each other. When done right, your investments should create a network of wealth-building assets that reinforce each other, just like Rockefeller's empire. So how can you diversify strategically? Look at your current investments or businesses. Ask yourself, what complementary industries or sectors can I invest in that would strengthen my core portfolio? Think about synergy, not just safety. Here's a rule that's almost unheard of today, especially in the age of social media. Stay under the radar. Rockefeller was a master of what I like to call discreet wealth. He wasn't flashy. Despite his enormous fortune, he lived relatively modestly, and he didn't broadcast his wealth for the world to see. This gave him an edge because he could move quietly and strategically without drawing too much attention. In a world where people are obsessed with flaunting wealth, luxury cars, designer clothes, fancy vacations, Rockefeller's approach is a breath of fresh air. He didn't care about looking rich. He cared about being rich. In fact, many of Rockefeller's moves went unnoticed by the public because he preferred to keep things private. He didn't need to impress anyone. He was focused on the long game. When you're not constantly trying to show off, you're free to focus on what really matters. Building wealth that lasts. Think about it. When you keep your wealth under the radar, you avoid unnecessary attention, jealousy, and competition. And let's face it, it's much easier to make strategic moves when everyone isn't watching your every step. So the next time you feel tempted to flaunt your success, remember Rockefeller's discreet approach. True wealth isn't about who has the flashiest lifestyle. It's about who can sustain and grow their fortune over time. The next rule, and one that no one follows the way Rockefeller did, is this: give back to grow. This might sound counterintuitive, but hear me out. Rockefeller was one of the greatest philanthropists of his time, and not just because he had extra money lying around. He understood that giving back was an investment not just in society, but in his own legacy. His philanthropy wasn't just about writing checks. It was about creating systems of education, medical research, and public health that would last for generations. By investing in the future of others, he was also securing his own future, financially and socially. Rockefeller didn't just give money to causes that made him look good. He put his resources into building institutions that made a lasting impact. And guess what? That impact came full circle, growing his influence and his wealth. The lesson here is that giving back isn't just about charity. It's about building relationships, enhancing your reputation, and creating a legacy that outlasts you. When you invest in people, communities, and causes that matter, you're building a network of goodwill that can open doors you didn't even know existed. And there you have it. John D. Rockefeller's investment rules. No one follows. These aren't just rules for accumulating wealth. They're principles for building a financial legacy that lasts generations. If you're serious about making your money work for you, start applying these strategies today. Whether it's investing in yourself, playing the long game, or strategically diversifying, these lessons are as relevant now as they were in Rockefeller's time. Now, if you found this video helpful, I highly recommend watching my next video, which is the perfect complement to this one. Don't hesitate to share this video, subscribe to our channel, and drop a Rockefeller in the comments sections and let me know which rule you're going to apply first. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.